I'm not the one doing the interview.
Yeah, well, let's get going then. All right, welcome everyone to another episode of the Double Digit Hockey Show. I am your host, John Easthope, here on ASTVProductions.com. Got a good show lined up for you today. Don't really have a big agenda, which makes these kind of shows a little bit more fun because, well, we're going to go behind the mic a little bit. I'm bringing on a guy I was going to do a show with at the big time. JD Haughton, how are you? Thanks for joining me on the show today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to join you from beautiful Northwestern Ontario.
We'll get to that in just a second here. The former host on ASTV of the Saskatchewan Sports Show. Big time in us, moving over to Kenora. How are things out in that part of the country for you today?
It's good. Actually, obviously due to the COVID restrictions, things have lightened up a little bit, which is nice. And, you know, hockey's getting ramped up again out here because they got a U18 team that plays in Kenora, and they also got a junior 18 that plays in Dryden, which is about an hour and a half east of Kenora. So that's going to be exciting. So I went to actually the first hockey action I've seen in probably a year and a half, to a skill development camp over the weekend, just to get that sense of hockey. And that was pretty exciting. And we also have an Olympian here in Kenora that competed at the Tokyo Olympics. So exciting to cover that a little bit as well. But things are good. It's definitely beautiful out here. It's not like Saskatchewan. There is trees and mountains. So that's a step up, I guess, from Saskatchewan. But besides that, no, it's going really good. And I appreciate you having me on the show.
I'm glad you joined me here. We'll just see if you still say the same things about the prairies once that Kenora winter hits, because that's going to be a ton of fun for you. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing in Kenora at that radio station there, a little bit about your job there, and then let's learn a little bit about the team that you're going to be covering. Who are they, and where do they play, and how excited are you to be back behind the mic doing some play-by-play?
So I play, I don't play. I work at Q104 in Kenora Online here in, obviously in Kenora. We're a full-fledged radio station. I am the news reporter and news anchor, so you'll hear me on the radio from 12 to 6 every day. I'm a journalist. I write kind of a variety of stuff, from provincial to, municipal stories. And then obviously my passion is sports, so I've done a little bit of that. And obviously with sports ramping up a little bit, been able to cover do a lot more sports stories, which is nice. Mainly hockey, but no, it's one of those. It's a job where I get to be out in the community and I get to meet a bunch of people and I get to learn about Kenora through Kenora and being a part of Kenora. So that's also very exciting for me to do as well. And obviously, like you asked, like you said, I'm going to be doing the play-by-play for the Kenora Thistles. Yeah, they're a U18 team. They play out of the Manitoba U18 AAA Hockey League. So it's, they're probably one of the more heavily traveled teams because it's 2 hours from here to Winnipeg. So just to play Winnipeg, you're 2 hours away. And then you got Brandon, which is 4 hours away. And you got a bunch of teams in the south and some teams in the north. So it's a lot of ground to cover, but they didn't get to play last year. A lot of the teams in that league got to play about 6 to 7 games. Yeah. But obviously with the provincial restrictions, they weren't able to go and play in Manitoba and cross that border. So they tried to get into the Junior A League just to play last year, and which is a Superior International Junior Hockey League, which they have a team in Dryden, the Dryden Ice Dogs. And they played a couple, I think, exhibition games, but that's kind of as far as it went. And then Ontario shut down. At one point, they were the most heavily locked down province in Canada. So when I moved here, they didn't even have, I think they just released their return to summer roadmap to reopen plan is what they called it, actually. So we're finally in step 3, but now we got to hit certain vaccine thresholds and stuff. But sports, hopefully you're going to be back. We're allowed 15,000 people in outdoor venues. So obviously the Toronto Blue Jays are back, and it's going to be exciting for hockey to begin again, allowing fans in the stands here in Kenora. It's just, I'm pumped for it. Like we talked about before the show, first time I've done play-by-play in a year and a half. So probably going to cry a little before my first game, but hey, it's okay.
I'll shed some tears on my end as I do my play-by-play, just in solidarity for you. So,
I appreciate
as you said,
that. Thank you.
they're starting to open in on. No problem. Things are starting to open in Ontario. Things are open here in Alberta. Alberta pretty much non-existent with COVID now is what they're called. Is what it seems like with the non-restrictions we have now. It's exciting for one thing and one thing only. For guys like you and I, that means we're getting back to the rink. How exciting are you just to get into a rink, even if it's just to watch a practice? How exciting is that after the last almost 2 years now?
Hey man, I'm thrilled. Like I'm ecstatic that finally hockey's going to be back. Obviously, you can see by my hats, I'm a big Blazers and WHL fan, so that's going to be exciting as well. But just to get, it would just to smell that rink, just to get in there and feel cold and just smell the ice and hear the skate, hear those blades going on the ice, hearing pucks hitting posts and boards and people's heads or whatever. The feeling is like I can't even explain how excited that I am for not only hockey, but sports to resume in general. And it's an exciting time here for Northwestern Ontario and for, the country of Canada itself, that, things are opening up a lot more in sports. Hopefully this fall, they're going to resume without any hiccups. And, it's going to be a good time for sports fans, for players, because the thing that sucks, I've talked about this probably with you and with other guys too, with guys that play in this league or played in other leagues that are 18, 19 years old, they didn't really get a whole lot of playing time to really have any opportunity to go anywhere. It's hard for a scout now to really determine if a player, you want to draft that player. We saw that in the NHL draft, how unusual some of those draft picks were on
absolutely.
A handful of video from the year prior, and not, you can't go watch them live because everything was shut down, and you're going off of maybe 3, 4, or 5 games. Because I know in Saskatchewan, I think they got in 7 games with their U18 league, and it was nice that the WHL actually found a way for each division to play out their seasons last year, or I guess this year. But it's going to be exciting just to have fans in the stands again. Smell that hockey rink French fries. That's my favorite part. That's what I miss the most.
I never thought I would miss the sweat smell from a dressing room coming out to the ice rink so much in my life, but here we are, right? You talk about being a big HL fan. They found a way to get some games in. Ontario didn't. Quebec had a really strange season, but they managed to hand out their championship. All 3 leagues now have a return to play here. All 3 leagues have a tentative date to start. That's very exciting for a new season for all these kids who wanted to get playing this year. Being in Ontario, you might have a little bit more feel about it, but how excited is the Ontario Hockey League type people to have actually get a season? They missed an entire year. It's got to be very exciting in those parts for you guys.
Yeah, and actually, it's the OHL here, from where we are, I think our closest team is maybe Mississauga or Sault Ste. Marie, which is about 11 hours away. So, I haven't really gotten the feel for the OHL scene out here yet. But like anybody else, I can imagine that these kids are going to be ecstatic to start playing again. Obviously, I think the OHL got to play some exhibition games, and then the government was like, nope, not doing any. We're not doing it. And you know what? They tried to figure out a way. But the problem with the OHL is because some of their teams, like the WHL, they have some teams that play in the States. So that was an issue as well. But Ontario is so huge that I don't know if they'd be able to do a hub city, and traveling would just be a nightmare. So it didn't really end the way that they wanted to do it. But obviously all these players and coaches and these teams are pumped to get back, and especially with the World Juniors development camp summer showcase going on right now as well. For a lot of those players, this might be their first amount of ice time that they've had, minus if they went and played at the U18s in the spring/summer, then this is going to be their first ice time in over a year and a half. So they're from I don't want to speak on anyone's behalf, but I know that if I was, a big WHL fan somewhere down there in the GTA or anything like that, it's probably pretty exciting for those guys to ramp things back up again.
Well, let's talk about a league we both know a lot about and we both love and we both watch. The WHL is going back to where they were. They're trying to limit travel again this year as much as they possibly can. I like that for not even a COVID season, just like that in general for these kids. Their studies are still very much important for a lot of these individuals. How exciting is it to be back into a regular rotation with the WHL? We got training camps less than a month away now. Are you itching to get back in a WHL rink here and to dive into what you have coming up this season? Like, what's the feel for you on the WHL coming up this year?
Honestly, man, I'm pumped. Like, I'm going to renew my CHL Live subscription. Like, I'm going to try to, like I said, I'm 2 hours away from Winnipeg, so I can probably catch some ice games on the weekends. But you know what, for these kids, and you know what, like you said, they're only playing within their conference this year, which it's still a long drive from, let's say Winnipeg to Calgary or Lethbridge. Like that's still, these kids, they're not going to be able to experience that major road trip before Christmas like they usually do to go out to play in BC or go play in the States. But you know what? Like for some of these young rookies, there's going to be a whole heck of a lot of travel. And like you said, studies are important. Like these guys got tutors on the road with them, making sure that they get their schoolwork done when they have any free moment. It's not a vacation to go, to travel. It's you're still working, you're still doing schoolwork, you're still, training as much as you can. Obviously with those road trips, you don't get as much practice in as you probably would like, but still the WHL this season, not only for the return, obviously playing a full 68 game season, but the fact of all these young players that are coming in, we saw it in the all across the WHL this past season, like all the rookies that came in and just performed. Obviously, Connor Bedard being one of them, but we all knew that he was going to be amazing. But guys like Connor Geekie and Zach Benson and Matthew Ward with Swift Current, and just to name a few. But there was so many of them that just performed like they've been in the WHL for already a whole season. And I agreed with, because the WHL, they're allowing, I think they allowed 16-year-olds to play a full season, which I thought was great to give them get their feet wet in the WHL, just to get that experience and get on the ice with the big boys. Because those guys are going to come back as 17-year-olds, bigger, faster, stronger, and a lot more skilled than maybe they were when they came into that season, that shortened season this past March. But no, man, I'm pumped, and I imagine you down in Southern Alberta is excited for the Hurricanes to come back. Obviously, it wasn't the season that they wanted. But it's hard when you're playing against the Edmonton Oil Kings, and
what a team.
Oh God, we'll probably get into that at some point during this show about their draft picks. But it was starting to see Carl Tadachuk. He's going to Moose Jaw now, and I'm a goalie guy, so I'll always look at the goalies first. And I thought that him and Brian Thompson were great goaltenders. They did what they could for their team, but to not have Oliver Ocular come back, he was one of their top scorers. He's a great hockey player. I can't imagine it was an easy season to watch for you.
Well, the Hurricanes, like a few teams, had something happen that they couldn't project, and that was not having your import players. And when you have an import player that had such a big role in a team, like Ocular did for the Hurricanes, then you add on the fact that they're not going to get Dylan Cousins back as well. He took Buffalo by storm, and we're going to be behind the eight ball here. So what it was for me and how I looked at it once those two pieces of news happened was this is a learning experience for these younger kids. And you saw guys like Hall and Stringer take another step in their development. You saw Alex Cotton take over this franchise, and he was the face of this team. The move of Carl Tadachuk this offseason was sad for us locals because he's a local product, but it gives the chance for another young kid to come into this lineup. And that's where my next question comes from. all of these imports couldn't come over last year, so a lot of these kids got more playing time. They got more time to be in different situations they might not have had. Like you mentioned, that's more development there. These kids are going to come back stronger and better. Are we in for an even more skilled WHL this year, a more battle-tested WHL? And then what would that provide for the on-ice product coming back to us then?
I honestly think that it's gonna be all skill this year in the WHL. Like you look at, obviously I'm a Blazers fan. You look at their team, like they're built with young, skillful talent, and I'm gonna feel bad for the goaltenders this year. You know, there's a lot of players out there that can and will put the puck in the net many times. Connor Bedard being one of them. Obviously, he is the next prodigy, the next Connor McDavid. You know, he's like, if he didn't have to go to the U18, like he probably would have won that scoring race against Peyton Krebs. Like I feel that he was like, he came out of his first game. I think he had like 5 shots. He had 2 goals. Like, who does that? And 2 very challenging and tough goals to score for a guy that's 18, that's been in the league for 2 years or a year and a half or however long. But I think, John, that Johnny, that he's going to be, or it's going to be a very skilled, powered WHL season this year, you know, and goaltenders are going to have to be on their A game, because night in and night out, you're going to be playing against guys that can put that puck in the net at any spot on the ice. And I was, like I said before, I was so happy that WHL allowed kids or 16-year-olds to play a full season in the WHL, because now you're just developing those guys even more. And instead of them being a 4th to 3rd line player, they're up in that 2nd and 1st line, you know, depending on their, you know, how they did last year. And I imagine a lot of these guys, a lot of these kids are going to be the face of the franchise going forward. Like a guy like Matthew Ward, you know, struggling Swift Current. He was their, you know, minus Poulter in net, and he played as good as he probably could have. But to see that, you know, Matthew Ward, he was, I think, 5th or 6th in the rookie scoring race. You know, he a lot of assists though. You know, he passes the puck and he helps out his teammates. But like those kind of guys, and like Winnipeg, for instance, they had 2 rookies that were just unreal, that were in the top 10 in scoring. And it was funny. I think I did this stat, and I think 9 out of the 10 players that were in the top 10 in the rookie scoring race were from the East Division. So that is going to be something, you know, to watch out for going forward. And, you know, I imagine that out your way in Calgary, and I know in Medicine Hat, they got some good young talent. Same in Lethbridge, say all across the Central Division there. And it's going to be exciting to watch these kids play.
You talk goaltending. You're a goalie guy, so we're going to start there in our little breakdown here. We have this league just graduated one of the best goaltenders in the last decade in Dustin Wolf. He no longer is here to dominate all the awards like he has the last 2 years, was what it seems like. There's a guy in Kamloops who could be the next guy to do that and dominate these awards. So let's go here on some of these top goaltenders. Who are you watching around this league to take over that top goaltender mantra from Dustin Wolf? And is your boy in Kamloops, is he up for that challenge as well?
Yeah, I think Dylan Garand is. I feel that, like, Dustin Wolf was, like, he was a great goaltender, and obviously you're a Flames fan. He went to the Flames. He's going to be wearing that. He's going to be in that sea of red anytime soon. You know, he was just, for his size, he was just a very strong goaltender. You know, he was athletic. He could, very athletic. He could, you know, cover those parts of the net that you would think that a small goaltender couldn't cover. And, you know, obviously we saw it in Everett, and he had a great team playing in front of him too. You know, and the silver in Everett. But, you know, to see him, watch him go to the next level, it's going to be great to watch. But I think Dylan Garand, you know, is more than capable of doing that. He's a very calm, cool, collective goaltender. He's, you know, he can see the puck so well through bodies, and like that was one struggle. I can't see to begin with. Obviously, that's why I have glasses. But to see that, he has very great vision on the ice. He works hard. Obviously, he's at the Summer Showcase, the World Junior Development Camp there. That's going to be exciting. But I'm looking at, you know, obviously going back to the Central Division, you know, to see guys like Garen Bjorklund. He's a great young goaltender as well in Medicine Hat. And then you have, you know, there's There's who else do we got?
Think Edmonton.
Well, obviously Sebastian Cossa, like Jesus, he's going to be playing in Detroit here next year. I can imagine. Like I think they're losing him, and I think it was something that Sam Cosentino said throughout in the NHL draft when he got drafted, that obviously they already had the Central Division title won, and he wanted to stay in net. I think that's what Sam was saying. And he's just that kind of guy. Like he's an Italian. I didn't know he's Italian. I call him the Italian Stallion. Like the guy's a beauty. But right off the top of my head, you know what? I probably should have researched this a little bit better. But for starting goaltenders, you know, obviously Dylan Grand's one of them. I like Garen Bjorklund and Medicine Hat. There's a lot of young goaltenders out there that I feel can make a difference. But like we talked about before, that skill is going to take over, and these goaltenders are going to have to be ready. And I know, you know, if Sebastian Cossa for some reason comes back to WHL, I would be very, very shocked if that happened. But you know, we may lose one of the best goaltenders as well in Sebastian Cossa. Like he had a 17-1-1 record. He had a goals against average under 2 on the season, like just like unreal. And like it's going to be it's exciting to watch him play, because obviously you're playing with a team with Jake Neighbors and Dylan Guenther and a bunch of guys that can you know give you that 4-0 lead. But I saw in that guy that, you know, he still performed at a very high level, and he's a very great goaltender, even when, you know, the Oil, when they're a tight game, he was dominant in the league. And I don't know, what about you? Like, who are your goaltenders that you like?
Well, I had to lead the witness there on that question, see if you take the bait, and you didn't. So I appreciate you not taking the bait and actually going with the guy that I have pegged as the guy who should win the goalie of the year. That's your boy. Dylan, for me, he's calm, he's cool, he's collective. He knows what it takes to win a hockey game. You've seen it. If anyone has access to those showcases, he looks really good there so far for Team Canada. I like Cossa a lot. I do. For me, though, he hasn't been a dominant goaltender because that Central Division was a little bit weaker for me. So I take a little bit of a different look at the season he had. I was obviously focused on the Central Division. And the powerhouse that was the Oil Kings, they steamrolled everybody. So I'm going to lead the witness again here. Let's say Sebastian does not return to Edmonton. Everyone else comes back to Edmonton that should be coming back to Edmonton. Are they a force again for you, or are they taking a step back? Because they still have that Jake Neighbors, they still have Guenther, and you can list a dozen other names before we get to the end of that list here. Are they still a powerhouse for you coming up this season?
I feel that teams are getting better in the Central Division to be able to give Edmonton a run for their money. You know, I lived in Medicine Hat, so I had firsthand of them, you know, a few years ago, and I feel like they're still the same team. I think that Sean Clouston's legacy lives on there with having a strong, speedy team. And Medicine Hat, they gave them a run for their money, but obviously, you know, when you have Dylan Guenther and Jake Neighbors in that first line, that, like, I don't know how many power play goals they had, but it was just unreal. You can't take penalties against those guys. But I honestly think that they could take a little bit of a step back, just because of the fact is that if they lose Cossa, I don't know who they have. I don't know, because Beck Warm they drafted obviously when COVID shut down, and I haven't really seen a lot of playing time on their backup, to tell you the truth, to really give my honest opinion. But I think they could take a step back in the way that I think that, like, a team like Calgary came out of nowhere, and I feel like they competed very well against Edmonton in the obviously the many games that they played against them, and you know that McNaughton, I think he's a great goaltender with Calgary, and
absolutely.
It's tough to say. Like, I want to say that Edmonton's gonna dominate, but I also want to believe that there's teams out there that are getting better to be able to challenge them, because WHL is so great because of the fact that the turnover on the powerhouses changes so frequently. Like, I remember back when, you know, Lethbridge was a powerhouse. You know, that was just a couple years ago. And I'm not saying that they're bad or anything, but, you know,
we're rebuilding.
it fluctuates between like Kamloops, for instance, was horrible for about 10 years. Like they made a couple they had a good team on paper, and obviously that was the era of the Portland Winterhawks when they had Seth Jones and everybody was playing for Portland, and they were just dominating everybody in that Western Conference there. But in my personal opinion, like I said, I want to believe that teams are rebuilding and getting better to be able to take Edmonton's throne. I want to see Dylan Guenther play in the NHL because I think he's capable of playing in the NHL. He may need one more season, but he's probably going to come back better and faster than he was last season, and that's pretty hard to better himself from last year because he was so good.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you worded your answer that way about these teams getting better, and I'm glad you mentioned Jack McNaughton because he was next up on my list of goaltenders. He surprised me a little bit by he stole the Hitman job a couple years ago. Just stole it. Flat out got and never left. But now he's being challenged by Mr. Peters behind him. That's a really good tandem that Calgary has to ride the season. Are they the best up-and-coming team for you in this Eastern Conference? Do they have what it takes to beat those powerhouse teams and be in the conversation for Best East?
I think so. They like you said, like Peters and McNaughton. I'm pretty sure they might have split. I wouldn't say split, but they had a very good relationship with playing both goaltenders, and both goaltenders were playing great. Obviously, they weren't playing in the Saddle Dome. They were playing, at another location, and same with the Oil Kings. But I like them. I like them because of the few games that I watched with them. Obviously, their goaltending duo is great, but they also have they're a put together team that, how am I going to word this? They play as a team. Sorry. There's not like a one player, kind of team where he was relied on most of the time to score all the goals and win all the games. They seem like they have a very cohesive unit there to be able to, win hockey games in a gritty, old school hockey fashion, getting those dirty rebound goals, working hard in front of the net. And then obviously having confidence in their goaltenders, with the, hopefully they stay the same as they did last year. But also, a team like Medicine Hat that has, obviously he didn't play for Medicine Hat last year, but Cole Sillinger, I think he is, he got drafted this year. He is a great product. He actually, I think he wasn't traded in the, I'm thinking about somebody else. But anyways, I think that it's going to be between, no offense to your Hurricanes or anything. They could,
it's okay.
They could, I don't know. They could come out of nowhere, but the matter of the fact is that I think Medicine and Calgary have a chance, or the two teams, to kind of pressure Edmonton in that East Division or that Central Division. But that East Division is so wide open because like obviously Prince Albert's going to come back. They're going to be probably a pretty decent team. Obviously losing Caden Gooley, their top, scoring defenseman, their leader. That's going to be, I think if he comes back, he's going to, pretty strong player. And then, Regina's looking good too, obviously with Connor Bedard, but they have, they're putting the pieces in place to be back to the form that they were, probably less than 10, maybe a little bit over 10 years ago, when obviously in the Jordan Eberle days, or even actually 3 or 4 years ago, when they made a challenge for that
the
WHL
Sam Steele
championship.
days.
Yeah. And they just, I think that they're a team to watch out for. I know Jared and I, we talked about this, I think last year or maybe earlier this year, but the fact of the matter is, it's going to be tough. And then look, Winnipeg with all their young goal, like Zachary Benson, and then Matthew Savoy hopefully will come back, and then he's an unreal player, lit it up in the USHL last year. And then you got Zach Benson and Connor Geeky as well, and then Connor McLennan, and it's just going to be, and then Brandon's always they always have a strong team as well. Like it's going to be an exciting Eastern Conference this year.
It really is. You just cut you off there. Sorry. You mentioned Winnipeg and Brandon, and I'm glad. Those two teams, they took that bubble by storm. Are they still the two to watch out for? Because in my eyes, I see it hard not to be those two to watch out for in the East. Winnipeg, they have built such a nice young core, but Brandon seems to be this defensive NHL defensive factory. So for me, these are the two teams out East to keep an eye on. Are they for you as well still?
I think so. I think that the only thing with Winnipeg that they need to figure out is their goaltending situation, because I think they rotated through 2 or 3 goaltenders last year. And I think Alexander, if I remember correct, they didn't have a young guy in net. I think all of them were around that 19, 20-year-old. If correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that if they figure out that goaltending situation and they get either if they trade for an experienced goaltender, or if they just can get that figured out, I feel like they're unstoppable. And then Brandon's always been I've talked about this before too, about the fact is that they were a very well put together team where they played as a team. They were all lines were competitive and could put the puck in the net. And obviously, you know what, I know I ran the numbers, and I think their main guy, I can't remember. Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank here, but I think that they have one of their top players is not going to be able to come back for the season. If he is, he's going to be an overager, which kind of depends on how their team dynamic works out, if he's going to be able to come back. But I think that they, just like every year, they can be a team to watch out for as well, because that East division is I think it's a wild card this season, just because of I don't know who's really going to, Winnipeg for sure. I think we all know is going to. I think they're going to lose Peyton Krebs, obviously, to go play in the NHL. I think he turns 20 this year, or he's still 19. But I think they're going to lose him. They're going to, but like I said, they're going to need to get that goaltending situation figured out, and they can be unstoppable.
The thing about the Ice is they're going to lose Krebs, but they're probably going to get Savoy back. Really a nice swap there, if you ask me. Brandon has an interesting situation as well. You don't often see a head coach leave a team like they saw this past season. They have a little bit of restructure there still to do for Brandon. That's still going to be a heck of a team to watch regardless of how that shakes up. The other team that we saw a coach change last year, no longer Sutter's in charge of the Red Deer Rebels. So wanted to get your take on the coaching change there, the new bench boss there, and what you make of the Rebels coming into the new season.
I think Jared and I talked about this earlier this year when that change happened. I think that for the Rebels, they need a new identity. He's probably still going to be the GM, and I'm pretty sure he owns the team anyways. Yep. So it's not like he's leaving the Rebels organization. It's just the fact that, in my mind, they need a new identity. They need a new, fresh set of eyes. Brent Sutter has done phenomenal job with that Red Deer Rebels team, but they had a really lackluster season last year. And to all those Rebel fans, I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure you felt the same way. It just wasn't what they felt. And losing Jaden Grube, third or fourth, game in, when he just got that seat given to him, and he was looking so strong, and he was going to be that shining star for the Rebels. But obviously he got injured, and it didn't work out. And they had a goaltending, with Ethan Anders and the backup there. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but it was hard to watch. But I think with bringing in a new coach, you're going to get a new perspective on the game. And I think it's going to be a work in progress with the Rebels, I think, for another couple of years. But they do have a young guy in the name of, oh my God, Cole Lynn's younger brother. Jesus, I'm drawing a blank. Oh God. But anyways, they have some good young talent coming in, which is going to be great to watch for the Rebels, especially because they are in that rebuilding mode. But I think that the move it wasn't anything against Brent Sutter. I just feel that people were getting frustrated with the way the Rebels have been playing this last couple of years, because it just was, Rebels, we're playing the Rebels tonight. oh, it's going to be an easy win. And it sucks when you're that team. But Swift Current's going
Don't
through
I
the
know
same
it down
thing
here?
right now too.
Hey, Lethbridge was the doormat for a couple of years there, which we had a 12-win season and a 23-game win season back to back. So I fully know what the Red Deer Rebel fans can feel like when they like that. New voice for the Rebels. We'll see how it works out for them. All right, I'm gonna take the wheels off of JD here. I'm just gonna say Portland Trailblazers, or not Portland, the Kamloops Blazers. Oh, I don't know why I thought of that. I have no idea. Anyways, the Blazers. They got 2 first-round draft picks back-to-back years. Zari, Stankoven. What do you expect from your team this year? Why are you so high on this team? Should we be bullish on this team? And are they the team to beat out west?
I think so. And that's not just me being I think they're going to possibly have Vancouver to fight with that, because Vancouver looked very well after they kind of had a sluggish start to the bubble there last year. But I like the Kamloops because I'm a big fan of Sean Klusi, because I got to watch him before he got I would say traded to Kamloops, but he signed with Kamloops, got let go of Medicine Hat, and ended up signing with the Blazers, which he builds his teams around small, highly skilled players, and that's exactly what Kamloops had when they had Connor Zary. And obviously, we all know how that story ended. You know, he went to your favorite Calgary Flames, and then he started to and then before the WHL came back, he lit it up with the Stockton Heat. So, you know, great for him. But they have so much raw, young, skilled talent in obviously Mats Lindgren, and then they like Caden Bankier, Matthew Semenoff. They have just so much young talent in their bank that they've looked better than they have in a long time. And like I was talking with John Keane, the play-by-play guy, and he was saying when I talked to him right before the season started, the bubble season, that he's like, this season it's going to be exciting to watch, but wait until next year when these young 16-year-olds have an opportunity to play in the WHL for a handful of games. And they just it was literally just a skilled ridden season for them. They were it's great to watch that, get that excitement again in Kamloops for people to come out. Cause just like Lethbridge, just like Red Deer, just like a lot of other teams, it's been some tough years in Kamloops with teams with just disappointing seasons. I think before their breakout season a couple years ago, I think they had a really pitiful season, like maybe just over 20 games won. Like it was just bad. They came to the Central Division on their road trip. I think they got 1 point out of 12, an overtime loss.
I remember that.
It was just terrible. Everyone just wasn't exciting. But now that they're back and Sean Klusen's just done a great job with them, he just became the general manager of the team, obviously with theirs passing away. And Dylan Grand in net, and then you have Dylan Ernst, his brother either still plays or played for Kelowna with the Rockets. So they got their goaltending situation figured out. He got into a handful of games last year, got some experience, but they're just highly skilled, highly potent. And then obviously Logan Stankoven hopefully will be coming back this year. And he was breaking out before he had to go to the U18 tournament. Obviously I thought he was going to go higher than he did. But
Me too.
The way that the world works, that whole draft was, I just can't believe what I saw sometimes. I'm like, there were some crazy selections, and I know they talked on it a lot. I'm a huge fan of Sam Cosentino. I think he's a great CHL hockey analyst, but it was crazy. And I thought he was going first round for sure, but that's the way the world works sometimes. He got picked up by Dallas, which I think is going to be a good fit for him.
For sure. A lot of drafts NHL teams drafting this year did one thing I thought was pretty consistent across the league was these teams stocking their cupboards. They were taking a guy they really liked around where their pick was just to have them in their stable of prospects, and we'll see how that works out for him. Stankoven, for me, should have been a first-round draft pick. Especially near the end of that first round, some of those that were picked were very question marks. Looking at Montreal and Chicago right at the end there as well, very big question marks on those draft picks. And I was really hoping the Flames would pick up Stankoven in round number 2, but he falls past them a little bit down. But Dallas, what are they in this player? What do they draft when they get he's an undersized guy, but brings all of this skill? What are they getting in Stankoven?
They're getting a quick, fast offensive player that, he works hard. He was lights out for the Thompson Blazers, their major midget team in Kamloops. I think he broke a 15-year-old scoring record, and I think he got over 60 goals, which I think broke Tyler Jost's record with the Penticton Bees. Like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but he scored in his first game of the WHL. He scored the opening season goal for the Blazers against Spokane at home in the 2019-2020 season. And it was like he's great on he's great on the face-off. He's highly skilled. He's fast. But he also likes to he's not a puck hog. He always somehow seems to get open, and he's not afraid to get his hands dirty either, throw those hits or get in front of the net and try to get that rebound. Like, that's the kind of guy that he's getting. And these are the people that Sean Clouston, he builds those kind of players and gets them onto the next level. And obviously having his brother there too, won a Memorial Cup with Kootenay way back, and it's going to be exciting to see. And I'm really excited to see if, Stankoven, when he jumps up to that next level. You look at Connor Zary, he's not a big guy either, but he's going to be playing in the NHL in no time with how, he's about the same size as Johnny Gaudreau, I would say. And look how Johnny Gaudreau turned out. Like, just a powerhouse for the Flames. And I can see Connor Zary and Logan Stankoven making that jump very soon.
Both great players. I love watching both those guys. Stankoven is at the top of my list of players to watch this coming up WHL season. He should be back in the league, hopefully. Of course, Connor Bedard is going to lead that list. But for you, who are 2 or 3 other guys at the top of your must-watch list heading into the new season of the WHL?
I'm excited to see what Matthew Savoy is going to bring to the table for the Winnipeg Ice. Honestly. Like, I am excited to watch him play because he didn't play last year in the WHL, and he lit it up down there. And I think he can do the same. And obviously, I'm excited to see a guy like Connor Roulette. Connor Roulette was great for the Thunderbirds before he went to the U18. Yep. I'm excited to see how he plays, to see how he finished. He picks up where he left off last season. Obviously, going to be watching those young guns out in the East Division in Connor Geekie and Zachary Benson. Actually, Zach and Connor Bedard, they played in that same CSSHL league, and so they're pretty good friends with each other. So to watch those guys play, obviously Connor Bedard, he's probably going to, I would be surprised if he didn't win the league scoring record or title this season. And I think, like you said, he's going to be on the watch list for everybody. And I can see that he's going to be if not a first overall draft pick, at least in the top 5. Or maybe, top 3.
Top 2 for me.
But it's going to be the WHL, like, I've watched it competitively for a number of years now, and I feel like it's some of the best hockey if you have a chance to go out and watch it, because this is what I love about junior hockey, is because you have those guys compete night in and night out. They're so competitive, and because they want to go to the NHL. Some guys get complacent when they go to the NHL. They know that they're there. They know they just signed a big contract, so they can, but these guys are just go night in and night out, playing in small town markets. Like a Lethbridge or a Swift Current or a Moose Jaw or a a Prince George or whatever. They're not playing in the Las Vegas or the, Calgary's or the, Pittsburghs or whatever. They're playing in small town markets. And that's the thing I love about junior hockey, is because these kids, to watch them, their progress continue and then go to that next level and play in the NHL. It's just like, that's what gets me going about major junior hockey. And even junior A, like the AJHL.
Yeah.
They got a draft pick this year, and Corson Kuhlmans.
Yeah.
And, to see the second AJHL player to go in the NHL draft behind, obviously Cale Makar, but it's going to be exciting to watch. Yeah, no, how about you? Who's your, besides Stankoven?
Yeah, I'm very excited. There's a lot of guys to watch. And before I comment on who I'm watching here, I wanted to share that whenever people talk to me about why I watch junior hockey, I look at them and I'm like, well, how excited were you when the Blackhawks won those Stanley Cups? Well, that was awesome. Well, those guys on that team, the Seabrooks and Versteeg, were in my local town playing for 3 years each on the Hurricanes. I watched these guys before they become stars, when they're trying to make it as a star. That's, for me, the joy of junior hockey. You're watching these kids chase dreams, just like you mentioned. It's amazing to watch. And people were amazed that I watched Seabrook before he was a Blackhawk, and how stunning that was to them. And I'm like, the countless stars that have come through Lethbridge via on the Hurricanes or another team, it's outstanding, the guys I've seen just by watching junior hockey. You see amazing talents. And we're hopefully seeing that with guys like Zari and Stankoven and Bedard, Voy. I'm really looking forward to watching Benson. You mentioned him as well, playing on a really good, really well-coached Regina team. That's a very good coaching staff they have in Regina. The Pats are a well-run organization. If they're not the best in the WHL run-wise, they're definitely in the top 3, top 2, top 3 there. It's a factory there. They pump out NHLers at an incredible rate. And I think Benson's on that track to be another one of those guys who's just going to become a WHL superstar and blossom into the next level. So for me, he's the guy that I'm watching beside Bedard. And I also want to watch Cole Sillinger, Medicine Hat Tigers. Sounds like he's going to be coming back to Medicine Hat. I get to watch him very closely as we play Medicine Hat about 1,000 times a year here in Lethbridge. I want to see how he progresses a little bit further now that he's been drafted. I wasn't in the draft Cole Sillinger wagon that a lot of Flame fans were, because that's where he was projected to be. And for one reason only, I found that he got a little bit lazy at times, and I didn't like that in his game. So I wanted to see how that progressed. Young kids, right? See how that progresses, how his game matures to the next level. So I'm watching him as well. And then not really a specific player, but this is probably the first time in a long time we look at the U.S. division and not one of those teams pops at us. There's good teams down there, but not one of them pops out. Like, it was for a long time, it was Portland. They popped at us. Then we had that Seattle Thunderbirds team pop at us. Matthew Barzal leads that team to a WHL final. So that U.S. division for me as a whole is something I'm going to be watching. And they get to travel back to Canada this year. They didn't get that last year. So see how some of those rookies respond there. So last question for you on the WHL before we move into a little bit other hockey talk here. What is for you the biggest storyline that you're going to be watching going into 21-22 season here?
Oh, that's a good question. I haven't really even thought about that.
That's why I asked it.
I have to say, like, just I'm excited to see where every team's at, to tell you the truth. Obviously there's storylines like Connor Bedard, but he kind of gets, everybody wants to see that kid. But what I'm excited to see is, like, I'm all about those underdogs, those teams that, aren't like supposed to win, but they win anyways. Like, a Swift Current or a Moose Jaw or, Regina or, a Lethbridge or Red Deer. I'm excited after, so long off, how these teams are going to respond. I will always cheer for the underdog, and I'm excited to see kind of where every team's at coming into the season. Like, obviously there's going to be some front runners, like there is every year, but to see teams like Tri-City Tri-Cities is in a rebuilding phase as well. Look at a team like Spokane. They were average last season. Even to see a team like Everett, because to see how maybe we're going to have a new U.S. division champion this year, because it was just a race between the Silvertips and the Winterhawks last year. See teams like Victoria or Prince George or any of those teams that didn't really perform last year, but are looking forward to seeing where they are this year after they went through the the import draft. I don't think they've gone through the Bantam draft yet. But just to see where those teams are at. And obviously, like I said, you're going to have front runners, but that's probably the biggest storyline for me, is watching those teams to see after, a shortened season, how they respond and how they bring back with a lot of these young players that they have.
It's a good answer. Actually, it wasn't one I was actually expecting, so I like that. I love it. Broad spectrum answer there. I love it, though. All right, that's enough WHL talk for now. We'll have you back again. We'll talk WHL in another show when we get closer to doing better of a preview show. Wanted to ask your thoughts and what you saw during the end of the NHL season. We're all big hockey fans. We all watched it. There was nothing else to do, right? What did you make of the Stanley Cup final? You had Tampa Bay. You had a good run by Montreal. Just overall thoughts of what you saw between those two teams in the Stanley Cup final.
I think at the end of the day, it was a shock to me that Montreal made it that far. But it was like Tampa Bay just was like they've been in the last couple of years. They're just a powerhouse. Vasilevsky in net, just dominant. I'm so happy to see him. He's coming to his element. He's performing at a high level like everybody expected him to. It's a weird situation with those Russian goaltenders sometimes. We saw that with Askarov in the World Juniors. Big, highly touted, went in the first round to Nashville in that into the draft. And it was just like, he just didn't perform to the way that everyone thought he was going to perform. But I'm happy to see that he's coming to his own now, and it's crazy the amount of talent that Tampa Bay has. But on the other hand, Montreal, what a Cinderella story they are, and that's not the first time they've been in that role either. Obviously, the first time that they've been able to advance in the Stanley Cup final after being in that role, but I'm a Winnipeg Jets fan, and to see them sweep the Jets, I was surprised, to tell you the truth. I'm like, okay, I'm glad we didn't get.
Yeah, me too.
We didn't get Toronto, but I was like, what just happened? But huge Carey Price fan. He played in the WHL. Big, obviously, just talking about that. But he played. Obviously, he's had some injury worries his last couple of years. He hasn't played to the caliber that everyone expects Carey Price to play at. But this year in the playoffs, it was a whole new Carey Price, and I was very excited, very happy to watch him. And they gave it the best that they could. They tried to compete as hard as they could against Tampa Bay, but Tampa Bay they had that extra gear that Montreal didn't have.
Being a big goalie guy that you are, knowing that you were coming on the show, I was trying to think of some goalie questions to ask you here at the end. And you mentioned Russian goaltenders, and there's one I want to ask you about. What did you make of, and his team had run losing to Tampa Bay in the Eastern Final there, what did you make of Sorokin this past season, his first season in North America, getting acclimated to what all is entailed over here? How did you like Sorokin or didn't like Sorokin? What did you make of his game and how he fits in with what the New York Islanders are doing?
You know what? He was like I said, those Russian goaltenders, it's so hard to predict with them, just because they're so highly touted and sometimes they don't perform it. I thought he played very well. The limited time that I was able to watch him when they played the Penguins, I thought he played as best as he could. And you're going up against a high-flying Tampa Bay, and it sucked that the goal that he let in. That was heartbreaking, because that was the final goal that, clinched a spot in the Stanley Cup final for the Lightning. And it just, it was, but I thought he played very well for his first season. Obviously the Islanders, they're another team that still is yet to find that number one guy, that franchise goaltender. Obviously, Rick DiPietro, they thought he was that guy, but ended up was not that guy.
Gross.
And they're still paying him for it. But they could have a starting goaltender, consecutive starting goaltender in Sorokin there.
Mm-hmm. I like Sorokin. I think he doesn't get talked enough about in the National Hockey League and in conversations because of the guy that plays just on the road from him is taking all the spotlight. About to get a new deal with the Rangers here. What did you make of his season, and is he as good as they're touting him to be for you?
Sorry, who was that? Sorry, you broke up. I didn't hear what...
Shishurikins. No problem. Shishurikin in New York.
It's another guy that I haven't really watched a whole lot either. But, it sucked that obviously Lundqvist left. And I think that was their guy that, they were trying to groom. I think they had an idea that Lundqvist wanted out, and Lundqvist didn't even play with the Capitals this year. But I think he has the raw talent to be a great goaltender in the NHL. And, like I said, I didn't watch him a whole lot this season, but, for the little bit that I did get to watch from him, I feel that, being behind Lundqvist, I felt like, everyone can learn by backup being the backup for Henrik Lundqvist. Like, come on. It's one of those things. And it's going to be exciting for the New York Rangers, obviously, not even just in their goaltending situation, but obviously Alexis Lafreniere, the big story from last year's draft. It's going to be exciting when he takes off and, they build a team around him that could win, and it's going to be exciting. And, obviously that's your best offense is a good defense. And when you have a good goaltender, you don't really have to worry about the 2-on-1s and the breakaways and stuff like that, because you have the full confidence in your goaltender. And I feel that he can do that for him. And it's Russia, for some reason, they can just put out some great goaltenders. Same with those Finns, and it's just something that they somehow managed to get a lot of highly touted goaltenders going in the first, second, third rounds of the NHL draft. And, it's great to see.
Last one for you is going to be a little bit self-serving for yourself, being a Winnipeg fan, but I wanted to get your take on their new backup goaltender. They obviously know who their guy is in Hellebuck, but with Brossoit moving on, Eric Comrie seems to be stepping up to take that mantle. So Western Hockey League guy, Canadian guy, sell us on who Mike Comrie is and why he's going to be the perfect backup for Connor Hellebuck.
I thought that. I think that Eric Comrie's waited his turn for this opportunity. He's been down there with the Manitoba Moose for, a few years now. And you would think that they, at some point we're going to give him the old college try. Like, he's played some preseason games. I know that, but he's never really had an opportunity to play consecutively and play a full season in the NHL. I'm excited for it. Obviously we're WHL fans here. So to see another WHL guy enter into the big leagues and just learn from Connor Hellebuck, I'm excited to watch that. That relationship between the two of them. Obviously, Hellebuck's, Vezina Trophy winner. He is the goaltender for the Winnipeg Jets. But you know what? If you can groom Eric Comrie to be that guy, like he was with the World Juniors and he was, in the WHL, then that is going to be, they might have found their next Connor Hellebuck, or, instead of putting him in that spotlight, Eric Comrie, just play your game. We saw, and we see Hellebuck just shine all the time. And even being a Winnipeg Jets fan, I'm afraid that there's going to get to a point, every goalie has a shelf life. You need to build for the future. And that's what I think that the Winnipeg Jets are doing. And it sucked to see Brossoit leave because he was such a reliable backup for the Jets. But I really like to see that Cheveldayoff there in Winnipeg and Paul Maurice, they're giving that opportunity to Eric Comrie because I think he deserves it. And that's just not being biased to the WHL. That's being, the kid's put in the work, and I think he should get. And it's hard to he's not Carter Hart, where he comes in and just completely just takes over the starting job in Philly. That's not going to happen in Winnipeg. And the thing I like about the Jets is they're all about developing their young players. Like Mark Scheifele, he was their first draft pick in their inaugural season, and they developed him for 3 years before they gave him, full ice time in the NHL, 3-4 years. I can't remember exactly how much, but they gave him that opportunity to develop, and they sent him back down to his OHL club. And look at the player he is now. And I'm a big believer in developing your players than throwing them to the wolves in the NHL because you're their first round draft pick, and they just never seem to get to that level. And with Eric Comrie, and goalies are a different thing too, because they need a little bit more time in the NHL than players do to adjust to the shots and the fast pace and just the game itself in the NHL than players do. That's how I feel that it seems. Yeah. And some goalies just get 100%. Lucky. And I'm excited. I'm super excited to see Eric Comrie backing up Hellebuck this hockey season.
Me too. I'm a big Eric Comrie fan. JD, this has been a ton of fun. Gonna have to get you back on when we have a WGL preview show as well. Thank you so much for making time for me today on the show. I appreciate your insights and your intel. And good luck out there in Kenora. Enjoy calling those hockey games as well.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. And thank you for joining me on another episode of the Double Digit Hockey Show. I will see you guys again next Thursday here on ASTV Productions, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Like always, have yourselves a great week. Thanks, JD.
Yeah, thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. That was fun. You kind of